Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Undercover Dumpster Fire. So stoked you're with us, and tonight's episode, I can't stop smiling because this is just going to be a phenomenal episode. Yeah, I'm just ecstatic. As you know, your host, Willy, former firefighter, now therapist, now actor. Myself, former law enforcement undercover detective, now just actor. And our
Just enough.
guest is none other, and I'm even wearing the shirt, and I'm going to start out with this too because I'm going to get called on it later. Yes, I was wearing this shirt last week's episode too, but there was no way I wasn't going to wear it, or not last week, 2 weeks ago. There was no way I was not going to wear it with having him on here. Come on. So I get some slack for that, all right? Anyway, awesome guy with an incredible story. I call him KetoFive0. His real name is Eric, but former law enforcement and now has made a, or I should say, has a passion for helping law enforcement and knows firsthand the struggles and the trauma and the pain that can come with this job, as well as all the great things, and has really gone so far out of his way to help other officers and first responders that it floored me. So I'm super stoked about him. He has a ton of knowledge, a lot of great things. And he does so many different things. Like I could go off on tangents, but everything from KetoFive0 to cops to campers, and we're going to get into all of it. I'm going to put out the warning right now that I'm calling it at 9:30. We are stopping tonight, but we are going to do as many episodes as it takes to get through his whole story and journey and what he is doing now, because it is way too important to miss any of it. So I promise we're going to get it all, but I don't want to throw it in the wall and have people not listen to the whole thing. All right, way too important. So now, I also forgot to mention Eric's a little crazy, and apparently he hasn't figured out how this show works. That we get to ask the questions. He comes on here, and apparently he's already got a couple questions for us. So we're going to start out with that, and then we're going to go after him the rest of the time. So,
Yep.
all right, Eric, you're up.
All right. First of all, thanks for having me. This is going to be a real
Of
serious show
course.
tonight, everybody.
Real
I want you to know
serious.
that.
Real
Um,
serious.
Actually, I'm just
Yeah.
playing along with you
Oh,
guys, man.
sunglasses off.
These Hollywood stars, I had to, man. I couldn't take it. But we're going to start off with first with the hose dragger over here. All right, we're going to go with my buddy
Yep.
Ken is a South Florida fireman buddy of mine. One
All
of the
right.
true firemen that told me the truth about the other cops that were talking shit about me. So he's always one of my true brothers.
Right.
So don't go talking bad about fire. But he
Yep.
wanted to know was two things actually. What was one of the impacts it had on your family, and then what were some of the personal coping things that you did personally? Obviously people have meditation, go to the gym, but what was it for you?
Yeah. Well, first off, I'd say impact of family was more than I gave it credit. Just because, if you have a job, you can focus on it and go to work and do what you need to do. And your family is at home doing whatever they have to do. And a lot of times they just live like a separate life in a lot of ways. So I guess I learned that over time. It was impacting them more than I thought. So things that they would see me tired, they would see me not sleeping. So it's odd to be tired and not sleep. You know what I'm saying? Like always be
Yeah.
exhausted. I would hang out in the basement. I had called it the steamer. It was just basically a bar with darts and place to get drunk. So the impact on the family is that's what they saw.
Yeah.
Like dad go to work, cool job, but also at the home he's always exhausted. Then I had a little daughter at the time, and to be able to get off a shift and then try to be awake when I was up all night and try to be a good dad. Yeah,
Right.
like it's tough. So to cope with it, though, I would just say I learned a little trick. This actually came way later when I started to do counseling and firefighting. Is I came up with the triage system. So it's kind of a play on the colors of the
Yeah.
triage system. So I got to where it was like, all right, before I come home, I'm in the green. I'm good to go. If I'm in the yellow, I'm probably not. I need some space. If I'm in the red, don't talk to me. And black was like suicide. I never really talked about that with my family,
Yeah.
but
The old
yeah,
dark stuff.
yeah.
You know.
So yep, that's how I communicated though. towards the end of my fire career, I had 10 years, and towards the end there, I just found that as the easy way to disclose real quick without having to say a bunch of stuff.
Right.
This is where I'm at today when I'm coming home, you know?
I
All
really
right.
like that. That's awesome. Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, Matt, this is the other question. All right. No, I'm not going to go anything crazy about hookers and anything like that.
That's the undercover
Go
part.
for it. Hey, go
Yeah.
for it.
No, you got a lot of integrity, so I know you didn't do that. So,
No.
but we briefly discussed this, and one of the things I was talking about was first responders' mental health and some of the other services that aren't available to us when we retire, and also maybe after something like maybe a disability happens on your job. Yeah, you might get disability, but you're just kind of part of that medicated system. But what about something like a VA type of hospital system care for first responders? So we pay into it already. Why get tied to the city insurance and the county insurance? Just go ahead and make us national, just like the VA, because we're the front lines of this country. And I don't think our Army buddies will mind, because we're all just trying to get help, right? I mean, so that was my question. What do you think about that idea?
And yeah, you and I did have a brief conversation. First of all, real quick, hey Abby, I see you just joined us. Thank you for coming aboard. So yeah, like I said, I've talked to you a little bit about it, and this is part of my goal as part of the platform I'm trying to build. Is some of that, right? Obviously, I love our veterans very, very much and everything they've done for this country, and I'm beyond thankful. And we have a long ways to go with them, but we're making progress. And then when it comes to first responders, not just law enforcement, when I say first responders, I'm talking law enforcement, firefighters, medic, Willy, we've talked about the stats before about what a normal number of trauma incidents a normal person has compared to a first responder, right? I mean, astronomical difference.
Yeah.
So you can't have this many episodes with trauma for most people and not have effects. And
Yeah.
we're talking about veterans in combat and the stuff that they go through, obviously need a lot of help. We need to start doing a lot of this for the first responders too, and we're not. We are so far behind on this. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to admit it. I've talked to vets before, and vets say, man, we're in a battle zone and then we come home, right? You guys are going through a battle zone day in and day out, and it's a different feel. Like that's where CPTSD, right? The one thing that I got diagnosed with, the complex. Complex. And that is the over and over again trauma on a daily basis.
Right.
So for us not to have some resource like a VA that law enforcement, firefighters, medics can be going to get help, I think is just asinine. Like it makes zero sense, because they're we're here on the battlefield at home. Yes, it is different. 100% it's different. But while in some ways we have it better compared to a battlefield, in some ways we have it worse. How many times have we had to watch kids die over and over again, right? And in my opinion, personally, there are a few things that have really been hard for me to get over my career. 3-year-old killed in a drive-by shooting. I haven't gotten over it. Women being trafficked and seeing it firsthand, can't get over it.
Right.
Seeing what happens to women who are being trafficked, can't get over it. And so the things that are staying with first responders their entire life, and for us not to have some system like a VA for them to go to, I think it blows my mind. And I will push for that until the day I die. And another thing I talk about is we need to figure out something. So how many veterans do 4 years or 8 years and then that's it, right? You move in and it's helped to get them another job to get out of it, right? We need to start looking at law enforcement a little bit that way too, and firefighters, again, all first responders. Because that will limit the amount of trauma you're seeing. Eventually, you've got to get out. Now, if you want to rank up, and it's just like the military, you rank up, you kind of get away from that, right? Because you get higher in the ranks. If law enforcement wants to do that, that's one thing, cool. But I know a lot of street cops that stay in it for 30 years on the street. Now, some places you can probably get away with that where it's a lot smaller, a lot quieter, I get it. But talking cities and things like that where you're inundated day after day with all this different stuff, that we've got to learn about, hey, maybe we need to shorten this and help them. You did a great career here. Maybe it is time to move on to something else and to see that. That, again, that's not an overly popular opinion. I get it. it's definitely.
I said 10. I said 10 and out. 10
Yeah.
and out. And then hopefully you're smart enough to build yourself for the next part of that career. And if it's a detective spot, maybe there's something. But overall, the trauma I saw after 10 years, I was done. And then I got shot 2 years later. So I mean, it's
Yeah.
and that's just it. Like, and I go back and I think about my first guys that I started on patrol with, in my squad, and unfortunately, I look at us and the number of us, and I guess I can't come out saying, oh well, I'm healthy. I'm definitely have my struggles that I'm getting better with, but none of us came out great from it, right? So we got to start thinking about these things, in my opinion. And Willie, I know you got to be able to say the same thing with firefighters, like the guys that you were on the squad with. I'm sure a lot of them are kind of torn apart a little bit afterwards.
Yeah. You just either turn your emotions off, but then they get turned off at home too.
Exactly.
And so a lot of them turn to alcohol and stuff. There is, on the fire side of things, there is a center of excellence. It's not a perfect scenario, but it is a hospital for firefighters, for IAFF firefighters. So 3/4 of the country are full of volunteer firefighters. So it only applies to the union folks, but there's an effort to do that. And I have seen in Colorado, there's a place called Denver Springs. I toured it because I wanted to see, is this actually a place that I would send somebody to?
Yeah.
But they do have first responder, like they call it like a hero track.
right.
It's like anybody who's had service, then if they come into this hospital and they're suicidal or homicidal or gravely disabled, which doesn't usually happen, but then they go into this hero unit, and there's counselors and other peers and stuff that are similar nature. And so it's an attempt, but it's not perfect, but it's good. It's better than nothing.
Hey, step forward. I'll take a step forward any day. 1% better every day.
Better than nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah, even for the mental illness side of it, with all the suicides and stuff, even if it was just function on that, we could make such a difference with something like that. All right, man.
Agreed.
Well, thanks for answering my questions, and I'll see you next week on the KetoFive0 podcast.
Yeah, don't think you're going anywhere. All right, so let's. I want to get right into the nails of it. Right. Let's talk about your career. With what you're comfortable. I don't know if you're willing to say where you were.
Yeah.
All that good stuff. And tell me about your career. And obviously, you had the shooting. I want to hear about it.
Yeah. I'll give you a brief fast forward. I grew up in Miami, Florida. I was born in Key West, right there on the Navy base over there, or the Navy hospital. My dad was in the Air Force. He was a cop in the Air Force. So mom dumped his butt, for fooling around in the service. Imagine that, a military guy fooling around. Oh, I'm so sorry. And had an alarm go off. I apologize. So anyways, I grew up in Miami, typical suburban kid. Mom was divorced. I was one of the only divorced kids around, and she went on a blind date with a fireman of all people. And they were just talking. I knew what he was up to, right? I'm looking back. Scumbag. But,
and she was law enforcement too. Am I allowed to say that, right?
Well, what I'm going to say is, on this date, he had mentioned, because now she's trying to find a job, because that $150 a month child support payment wasn't really stretching it. And he goes, hey, the county's hiring female officers, and they're hiring dispatchers and everything. So she applied for everything because she saw the benefits, the health insurance, and ended up getting hired as a Miami-Dade, Metro-Dade, whatever way you want to call it, police officer back in 1975. And I was 6, and that's most of my life is remembering my mom as a cop and shit. So
she's a complete badass, just for the record. Like,
yeah,
I don't know how much you'll go into, but she is a badass.
Well, briefly, if you watch the show Griselda on Netflix, she's the star cop that takes down the legendary Griselda Blanco. And my stepfather, Al Singleton, he's the one that really did all the work. But they wanted to have woman versus woman. So no, you ask him. He's a Marine, though. He won't say anything, and he's not gonna rat himself out. But he's in the show too, and he's a side character. And his big thing is he had that golden stapler. When he's like, "I found the stapler," and it's like, poor guy, all that work, and that's his claim to fame. But he was in Cocaine Cowboys documentary, so they were very heavy in the 70s, 80s, narcos. The drug cartels and all the bodies ending up all over Florida. And I was playing high school football, living my life, just not thinking about stuff like that. And went to Florida State, thought I'd become NFL security. That's why I got my criminal justice degree. NFL security, right? They only hire FBI agents and, former you got to know somebody, right?
Yeah, Charlotte, there's several of them got it, and it was all because they got to know people working off-duty gigs.
So, yeah, I didn't know what to do after college. Here I am with a criminal justice degree, and it's either be a cop or be a cop. But I ended up catching shoplifters. I went to work for a store called Bearden, which is like a Macy's, and that was fun. I could dress plain clothes. That's why the acting stuff. I mean, I can act, man. Trust me. I mean, I'm auditioning right now.
Yeah.
No, but we used to walk around plain clothes, shopping bags, act like we're, just a shopper, and fight guys. And this is the 90s. Like, we could chase them through different stores. I'm knocking mannequins over. It was a blast, dude. I always thought we should do a TV show called LP Live, like Cops, was the LP version.
Yeah.
But I kept catching so many in Boynton Beach where I was that the cops kept coming. They're like, man, you should join us. I was like, man, they're like, you get a nice Batman belt, you get a pension. And I was like, well, retail security versus obviously, getting on the job was a big difference with pensions and protection, and I started applying and dead end, because of all the weed I smoked at Florida State. All right. So in 1994, it was very bad to have any kind of marijuana history.
Oh, yeah.
So it became an old game. Are you high in the last 5 years? And I'm like, no. And they're like, okay, now you can go further in the process, So finally, Boynton Beach gave me the shot. I dispatched for 6 months in Sunny Isles Beach. That was my first step in the door in the right direction. Because the other way wasn't happening. They're like, pothead later,
Yeah.
Polygraph. I'm like, I didn't buy any pot. And it's like,
You didn't try to do the whole I didn't inhale thing, did you? Because that does not work. All right, I've heard that before. It's just
all right. So I was failing them so much that I bought something on, I think it was before Amazon. How to beat the polygraph, right?
Oh, yeah. Totally.
And you had to use your sphincter muscle on the truthful questions because that would make your blood pressure go up. And now tell me how to beat it.
We try to avoid that on this show, but you do what you need to do.
Everyone's like, wait, they're all
taking notes.
So they say, if they say Eric, is your name Eric? You're like, maybe it's not Eric. So when they say, did you take those pencils from the office? And you're like, I did. And then you remember that box you put in your back pocket. Maybe it'll be a little closer than the big gap, right? So I had fallen for a couple of the jokes. Right before you leave, the polygrapher always says, man, you got to give me something. This thing's saying you're lying. And I'd always be like, I bought a Valium once at a party.
Yeah.
Another thin letter in the mailbox. Like you get a credit denial. Well, mine was job denials.
Yeah.
So dispatch, here I come. All right. You won't let me on the call, but at least you let me call the calls out. And, I actually went through a dispatching school. It was very dude, you want to talk about one of the hardest jobs ever. I will always love those people because the stuff I heard on the radio without being able to be there and the stress of, the other day we were just talking about, we were calling somebody and they had their phone down or something. And my wife was getting a little stressed because they weren't answering. I'm like, imagine you're calling a cop or somebody and they're not answering. Now you got to send units. And that would happen all the time. Like all day long, you're just kind of leaning in. Like, is that guy listening or is he in trouble? So, all that would just build over time. So I just forgot what I was saying. Damn it. Dispatch. The dispatch stuff, all the recordings you would hear. And so within 6 months, I was already sending my applications back to Boynton Beach that originally denied me and said, hey, I'm a dispatcher now. You hiring dispatchers. And they go, you know what? We're hiring traffic aides. You know what that is? The guy that's he's not sworn, but he wears the light blue uniform with a vest and everything, so you still get shot. But you don't have a weapon.
Holds up the stop sign.
You still get shot though, and you're running around with your pepper spray. All right, so I'm dressed just like a cop. I'm like, help me out here, So yellow light, don't worry, that'll protect you. I'm like, okay,
just shine it real quick.
Yeah.
But what was a good thing about that job is I learned how to do traffic accidents. I learned the intersections in radio. And I learned the culture of the department without the pressure of having to be a rookie cop. So coming in that way and with the experience of catching shoplifters, I was a lot more mature. I was 31. This was serious for me. I got tired of bouncing around. Boynton Beach finally gave me a shot, right? And I knew if I did a good job in the CSO program, I could get into the police program. That's what the goal was. And, I got hired and I was really good at doing traffic crashes. I went to traffic homicide school the first round, and I was like, hey, I guess this is what I'm going to do. I'll I'll get into the insurance business or something. You know, you're always thinking ahead.
Actually, yeah, I was gonna say that's a good retirement gig right there.
So, you know, they finally put me in the academy within 9 months, and I went with my buddy Joe, who was also CSO, and we were the first two guys to go from the CSO academy into the police academy. So it's almost like this try. Let's see if this works. And we came back and we were freaking superstars. And I don't mean we're like making the most arrests, but you know what? We're straight away. We knew the radio, we knew the bosses, they knew us. So instantly we were ready to go and just wanted to learn. And they didn't have that edge of, do I trust this guy or not? We've already gone through it. And that started a system of like 18 to 25 other guys went that route. Somebody that they were a little swooshy on, hey, let him be a CSO first. See if he can handle that. And that worked out really well. And then, you know, obviously as a cop, you know, I started going to midnights and, you know, doing everything that we do. And around, I did vice unit. I didn't do strict. I was made as a cop, especially when I was 250 pounds, bald headed. I was the bull going through the door.
You're definitely a cop.
Yeah, always. I was good with the ladies with that look though, man. The bald headed was good then. So yeah, but anyway, that was my old days, former self. And yeah, and you know, you do the bike unit. I did that. That was fun. The community outreach stuff. And then I went to a jam unit, monitoring kids that are on probation and checking up on their curfews and finding out who their mamas are and all, you know, their dads are. Just everything really becoming one with the community. New administration comes in, units get switched around. Next thing you know, I'm back on the road, right? We all been there, you know. 10-8, give me my next call, right? And it was June 12th, 2012. I was a senior guy on our day shift. I used to like to leave early certain days to go play basketball. I was leaving at 6 o'clock, go play hoops, and I'm 1 of 10. That's important when you run a full court. You can't be the guy that doesn't show that you're going to run 9, right? It's always a big pain in the ass, especially in the hoop culture. And I play a lot of basketball in my life. That was my sports besides football. So I remember thinking about it all day long, every call, and then at 4:45, a bank robbery comes out in the next jurisdiction. And they're like, red Crown Vic, guy seen with a gun, black male, fled out with white boots on. I was like, white boots? Red car? Was that a clown? You know, I'm thinking some clown robbed a bank, right? And then, like, he's coming over from his gig, didn't get paid. Like, Hong Kong, I'm tired of this shit. Yeah. So they send the 2 night shift guys, right? And I start looking, and this is that overlap when some guys are coming on, some are going home, and I'm the only available unit in the city. I'm like, oh, man, I know how this is going to go. Yeah, exactly. I ain't making basketball at 6. Yeah, because it won't be just a simple paper call. It'll be the call where I got to chase a guy through the woods. He gets hit by a car, and now I got to do, you know, cluster. So I jump on the call. I'm like, hey, dispatch, put me on that call too, boloing for the car. Boloing, because sometimes we always just drive around looking. You never know. Sometimes you get lucky. And next jurisdiction, I'm like, well, if he's coming this way, it's either 95 or US 1. You know, that's the 2 directions. And I see this red car coming over the bridge, and it's a Lincoln with a white top. And I'm like, close enough. So I call it out, but I'm facing a different direction. So he makes a right turn, and I got to whip a Yui to get behind him. And he kind of guns it a little bit. And I'm like, and I start catching up. Remember, there's no tag. So I just know it's a red car with a white top. Boynton Beach, Florida. A lot of retirement guys coming from the beach. Yeah. So I get up on him, and handicap tag. I'm like, dispatch, handicap tag, da-da-da. And all of a sudden, he slows down and stops in the middle of US 1. I didn't turn on my lights. He just stops. And I'm like, Spidey sense is going off, you know, like, what's this about? I'm like, dispatch, he just stopped right here. And they're like, where are you at? I'm like, 500 South Fed, right? Waiting. And I hear backup coming. And at that time, Chris Monroe's our nighttime DUI guy coming from the city pumps filling up. And he hears it. And he's like, well, I'm right here. I'll start heading that way. So he's actually waiting down for us to come up to him, you know, but now that we stopped, now he's going to come around. That's on my video. If anyone wants to see it on the YouTube channel, you can see his version of his dash camera. And he ends up, right before he can get to me, the guy guns it. So there's about 4 to 5 seconds where he's sitting in the car and I'm sitting in my car. And it's one of those, I look back and have some real deep like thoughts about that shit, because it's like, if I would have walked up to that car, because it's a different car, it's just similar in color. If I walked up and was like trying to do an investigative, like maybe I was heightened, but I wasn't aggressive, you know, and I just kind of walked, hey, sir, do you have your car kind of matches dude, he would have fucking shot me dead right there. He was ready to go. I didn't know it at this time, but I sat back, waited, you know, experience, Learn not to rush things. Slow is fast sometimes. Take your time. You know, you can be more effective sometimes. And he takes off. So now it's a car chase. And I'm like, oh, shoot, car chase. And now, you know, that's when you're hype. Everything kicks in because now it's 5 o'clock traffic on US 1 in South Florida. And this guy decides to get in a car chase. And he didn't go that long. He went through some different parking lots. He kind of sideswiped some cars a little bit, you know, and he took a right turn on Railroad Avenue. On the dispatch, I yell out one wrong direction. It bothers me to this day. You know, I yelled at he's going eastbound. He was going westbound. I'm like, that's the one. You're like, you know, when you make a mistake with anything you do, you concentrate on that.
Later on.
So one of the crazy things is I had a 2006 black and white. And it was one of those ones where the camera had to bang on it sometimes to get it to turn on. So I'm in the middle of this chase, not knowing what's going to happen. And we're going up right before we get to Railroad Avenue with railroads right next to us on one side, industrial center on the other side. So I'm like, this guy knows this area. I look up, my camera's not on. So I turn it on. So I'm seeing the little lights powering up. Doot, 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 doot. Woo, he's going westbound. Or he's going, no, he's going northbound. All this is going on. And finally it stopped. I hit record. So we go through a stop sign and he makes a left turn and there's a car coming the other way. So when he cuts that turn too sharp, he head on hits this other lady and the back of the car bounces up. And you'll see that one on my dash camera because you're like, why? That's the only part of the video that you see because I just turned that bitch on. So that's the equipment you get sometimes. And so he stops, smoke everywhere. I roll up on him way too fast. I'm not in a very good tactical spot at all because he came to a sudden stop and I wasn't ready for it. And I was able to turn my wheels and jump out. But as soon as I, undo the seatbelt, opening the door, is this cat going to run? I can't see. I see the door wiggling. As I'm getting out, it was like, bah, 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 bah. And then I start seeing the ground. I'm like, everything that you imagine was going through my mind in a matter of seconds. And then I'm just moving to my left, like one of those movies. And you don't see me on the video because Chris Monroe at the same time, it was behind me. He pulls up to the right. So you see him get out. And now he's exchanging gunfire with the suspect. And I'm also to the left off camera, almost like doing a diamond, but you don't see me because I'm off. It's like Chris is shooting, but I'm over here. So all of a sudden, he comes over to my side. I'm behind a pole reloading. We start laying rounds down as many as we could, giving verbal commands. And then I remember the one part of the video when an officer gets pulled back because looks like he's going to walk to the back side of the car, right in the crossfire. So when another cop pulls him back, right at that point, you're going to see me at the window, and I'm putting on like the last 2 rounds with Monroe. We're just like finishing this shit off because he was trying to clear a round out. He had a stovepipe, looking at the crime scene photos, you could tell it was jammed in there. He was trying to clear it, and he was shot freaking 16 times out of 38 rounds, and there was 4 kill shots. And Monroe and I, we're like, what, we're kind of like, whose bullets? I hope I hit him at least one time. I fired 2 magazines, right? And they're like, well, there was 2 from a 45, and I was like, yes. And they go 2 from a 40, and he was like, yes. So we both high-fived it. At least our rounds hit, and got to look at the crime scenes. But during the shooting, I start feeling pain in my left foot and my right leg, and I'm like, what's going on, right? And then I look down, and I see these 3 holes through my left shoe, right through my, just missed my big toe, but then just kind of took all the meat out of the middle side of my foot, And then I had a graze on my right shin. So, we're still, they finally pull the guy out. They sit me down, and, chaos. Now I hear the sirens. No one turned my sirens off yet. Woo, woo. Now I hear them. I didn't hear them before. And they cut my shoe off, and, the paramedics get me. But at that point, before that, one of the things I forgot to tell, I try to remember to tell people is I didn't train a lot in shooting. I did the basic shooting that I had to, part of the vice unit. Sometimes we had to do some entry stuff. So I learned how to shoot the long guns and rifles and stuff like that. But that wasn't my thing, like going every week. I'm going to master, 2 in the head and, whatever. But I shot enough. And at that moment, one of the biggest things was my reload. And I don't know what it was, but when I was shooting, something was like, dude, you're about to run out of bullets. It was a timing thing. And sure enough, I looked at my slide. My slide went back, reload, back in the fight. And it's just from repetition. So if you think that shit don't work, that shit will. And if you learn bad habits, it's probably going to do the same thing. So try to be consistent with it. So anyways, now I'm shot. You guys have any questions? I've been talking for like 15 minutes.
No, you're good.
No, that's good.
Okay,
Keep going, man.
So, well, this is where you guys come in. All right. So
Yeah.
now, so FD picks me up in their little wagon, right? So now I'm in there, and FD guy's like, "You all right, dude?" I'm like, "Yeah, man. I'm hot as fuck. I'm hot. I got the vest on. It's June 12th in the summer, in South Florida. Sweating polyester, that's awesome. And I'm like, "Can I have some of that water?" I had one of those plastic bottles, and he's like, "Nah, you don't want to drink that, dude." And I was like, "Oh, it's like some old saline water, or maybe it's tap water that they give to people." And then the AC's sputtering; it's not working. Oh, why, dude? And I'm
Nice.
like, dude, and they're, I'm getting a police escort. I was like, wow, this is fucking wild, right? And I'm like, hey, what happened? What happened to the bad guy? So I never saw the final. I never saw him dead. I never saw anything. And he's like, oh no, he's dead. And I was just like, and then it's like, oh, what's coming now?
Yeah.
Wait, was everything cool? I mean, did he have a gun? You start making sure that you're squared away in a weird way, even though you are. You're still like replaying it over and over, and you're in the hospital, and everyone's coming to make sure you're all right, and it's like a big attaboy thing, and everyone's like, they went and got my wife and scared the hell. So I call my wife. Remember basketball? Yeah. Oh yeah, I got another story. I got basketball stuff. It's still supposed to be basketball. So I call my wife first. I go, hey honey, a little incident. I got nicked in the foot. They're just taking me to hospital for stitches. She's like, okay, you all right? And she's like, yeah. And my son Killian was 5 months old at this time. And this Sunday coming up was my first Father's Day. Hey, we're going to have a big celebration, first Father's Day. Well, now I'm on my way to the hospital. So I'm like, all right, well, everything's cool. Well, they ended up picking her up, bringing her to the hospital, stressing my kid out. He cried the whole time. Like, it's the worst thing we should have probably did. We should have just let him sleep at home. I wasn't dying at that time, thankfully. And so they start picking out pieces of the fragments out of my foot, and then they, start doing all this stuff, and they send me home. I was like, wow, at least I get to go home. And I'll never forget, I was a Heat fan then. I was a lot more into basketball then. It was the Heat versus Oklahoma. And it was the first time LeBron and them won. So I was kind of really into the game, and I remember like DVRing it, watching it. I remember I made me a heavy-ass cocktail, and I popped that Percocet. I was like, fucking flying in the zone, and they lost the game. Game one. They ended up winning 4 straight, but at this point, they lost the game. And I remember the day I get shot, they can't even win the damn game, right? And right away, Channel 11, no, I'm sorry, I think it was Channel 5 news comes on. They're like, tonight, another officer shot in the line of duty. And at that time, we had a series, sometimes comes in those spurts. And we had like 3 or 4 guys get shot. None of them killed, maybe one. I don't really remember 100%. And it was just kind of this thing. And I'm watching. I was like, oh, my God, a cop got shot. Not realizing they're going to be talking about me, but they just haven't said the name. And then I saw the news story. And my foot's in a boot, and then I get a little scooter and all this other craziness. And the psychological test the next day, I think it was 2 days later, Chris and I go in there together. How you guys doing? Oh, I just got shot, all right? But I think I'm all right. I'm pretty good, That was it. All right. We'll see you in 3 months when you're back on the road. That was it. Now, I could have requested help. I could have, done a lot of things differently looking back. But, you don't know. I'm like, man, first of all, I'm happy I survived. Yeah. My first month, I didn't get a paycheck because the city and workers' comp got sideways. So I got paid in September, but I missed a month. But, too, I was living paycheck to paycheck because my wife's at home with the baby. You know what I'm saying? All of a sudden, it was stressful. Yeah. Like, I can't do details now. I'm living on basic pay. Workers' comp doesn't pay what you were getting, your overtime and all that. You get the bare minimum. And that so all that started to build, and, they cleared us in the shooting. I went back to the road 3 months later, and then we can go down some of the stuff that started happening at that point, with going back after something like that, Hey,
let me ask, I got a question.
Yeah.
So when you think about it now, what's the first, anytime you think about the shooting, what's the first thing you think of? Like, what's the most vivid memory for you of the whole incident?
The first tale, or the first thing he did to me, was when I passed him at that light, and I was passing by, going the opposite direction to turn around, and then he made the right turn, was I saw his hand sitting there, and I couldn't see inside the car because of the shadows, but I saw his black hand. I remember the bolo went out as a black male, so I knew I got a red car, white top, black male, so it's kind of starting to come along, and I saw his finger tapping the steering wheel as I drove by.
Hmm.
And he had a
Yeah.
ring. He had a ring. And sure enough, in that shooting, you know what one of the crime scene photos is? Oh yeah, it was this left hand. It was that ring hand being shot off. And
Mhm.
it's crazy, dude. Like it was like that was my target during the shooting because he had his hand on the door when he was shooting,
Mm.
and that took it out. But I saw that ring when I
Mm.
passed him,
Yes.
looking into the car because you're intense. You're like, hey, is there kids in the car? Is there more than one guy?
Yep.
So yeah, that's one of the first
Mhm.
things. And then thinking about if I walked up to that car too soon, if he would have
Yeah.
let me just, I don't know what would have happened further down the road if we would have pulled him over eventually. So I don't know what his plan
Mhm.
was. A high speed getaway. I mean, it wasn't going to work. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Outrun the radio.
Yeah, we got hot helicopter, we got the Eagle and all that stuff.
Right? Yeah. You're not gonna go anywhere.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah. What is that? Can I ask you? What did you say to your son? What did you say to your wife at
She
the
didn't
time?
really understand it for a while, and then when she like saw the video and heard the dispatch tapes, she doesn't ever really want to hear it. Shockingly, I don't know why. It's so exciting, but
Yeah.
it's
Hmm.
nightmare for her. Yeah, and then it started. And over time, we got to go to Washington D.C. We were honored as National Officers of the Month, Chris and I, and that was crazy, like impactful. I mean, it was just like the saddest thing I've ever been to, but also the most like rewarding at the same time. My mom lost a best friend in the line of duty. We saw her name up on the wall. I've got Joe Crowder and Dennis Castro who died, and it means a lot. So yeah, but it's brutal. Get ready. It's going to be emotional. That's a rough one. And
Hmm.
I felt like I owed it to the guys anyways to do it. And yeah, man, it was a crazy roller coaster. She suffered with me, and I started drinking more. I had to, I got back to the road and I thought I was pretty good. And I was. And you get
Hmm.
this like officer of the month, you can be officer of the year. And, you see your name, they announce your name. And now you start getting all these friends from the past or academy guys are like, dude, you all right? And, it's just all across
Yeah.
the country. Anybody that really knew you that cared would reach out. And it was kind of cool. He's like, oh, it's nice. I haven't heard from you. Yeah, I'm good.
Hmm.
And then you're sitting there after, typical 6 months later, I'm still handling calls, and every call I think I'm going to die.
Hmm.
Like a basic call of an alarm where you're checking doors. You find an open door, and then I see a bicycle, and I'm like, oh shit, is there some guy in here right now? And then now you're there. You're like, there's a guy in here, and it
Yeah.
turns out it's the owner's bike. All right, false alarm, and now I'm in the
Hmm.
car, but I'm still like here.
Yeah.
Whoo, that could have been. And the next call is like, hey, my neighbor's stones keep landing on my. I don't give a about your damn
Yeah.
stones, right? So I felt it
Hmm.
building, and my wife was like, something's going on, and I really didn't know what to do really, except
Hmm.
medicate myself, and that what was it, officer survival? You go back into that chair, because you spend all day long in the red, and you're
Hmm.
never in that happy spot, and then it's just boom, complete failure. Don't make a decision. You can't, even think straight, and your wife's trying to tell you about her day, and you're like, I don't, and then you start, it's just cycle. It's over and over. So my wife was
Hmm.
huge in at least telling me, hey, something's going on. And then I happened to ask somebody about, do we have a lawsuit against this guy? Like the insurance company for his car does, because they always sue us, right? Do I have a
Yeah.
civil suit? Because I lost a lot of money from
Hmm.
just
Right.
overtime, and my foot's still not the same, even though they're like, you're 4% disabled. Oh, okay, thanks. That does me a lot.
4%.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Four
Well,
percent.
I will say I bought half my truck with that 4% settlement, but that's another story. Yeah, so I didn't know what to do, and so I asked the guy who asked the guy, and another guy had been shot in the line of duty, or somebody else had said, hey, call this one lawyer. So I called that lawyer, and he goes, no, you got to talk to this guy, Michael. He does all workers' comp for first responders. And I was like, all right. So I called him up, and they got me, consultation. I went in, and he filed a case, and I already had an open case because of my foot. And we started looking at the PTSD side, trying to get me help. I mean, we had a new administration come in. Oh, I need to tell you. So after 6 months, almost shot another guy. The shot put that ran off, found him hiding, hands in his pockets. Hey, let me see your hands. Still don't know what he's wanted for besides shoplifting. He could be a freaking murderer.
Hmm.
Hands in his pockets. Fucking, get your hands out of your pocket. And then I was able to run up on him, get him to the ground, and handcuff him. And I asked him, "What the heck were you doing?" And he's like, "Sorry, sir, I never had a gun pointed at me. I was getting my ID." So I was thinking in my head, like, "Damn, that guy's only interaction with cops is always, let me see some ID, bro." So in his moment of stress, it was go to the ID. And I almost put 2-3 rounds in that cat. And I probably could have sold it. Like, I was in fear. He ran from us. I didn't know. But you know what? It would have been me having to live with that, right? So that was like building. And all of a sudden one day it was like, hey, the detective in evidence got pregnant. And then she's going to go to like D Bureau or something. So that opening in evidence for a sworn spy. And I was like, Monday to Friday, like 8 to 5, work with another guy. I'm like, let me do it, man. I'll get off the road. I need a break, right? And it turned out to be the best move ever. It probably saved me it allowed me to stay a lot longer because I probably wouldn't have been able
That's
to
great,
handle
like that you were able to even figure that out. Like to be smart enough to say, "Hey, this can save my life." It's huge.
Well, it was just eating at me, and you know, you're trying to work through it. And I thought, well, let me get in here. That'll keep me off the road of the stress of of everything that's going on, and it's kind of funny. The reason there's sworn cops in evidence is because the civilians were stealing, right? And then they caught the cops that were in evidence stealing. Right? And then it's like, I come in and they're like, all right, but I was squared away. And, it's funny. The guy ended up beating out, the detective got busted for some cocaine, little something on the side one weekend. And he's got to wait for his retirement. They didn't prosecute him. He just has to wait until he reaches that age and
disappear for a while kind of thing.
Yeah, learn your lesson. But yeah, so anyways, I'm in evidence for like about 6 years. But during that time is when a new administration comes in. They're like, why are we paying a cop salary for a civilian evidence guy? And I'm like, oh, I'm going back out there.
Yep.
So it starts all over again, right? So that's when I pursued the lawyer thing. And then I finally found, and this was a real difficult thing. I had to go through a EAP, go in there and tell this lady, this is what's going on. And I didn't tell her everything. I didn't tell her how much I was drinking. It was like, how much I have 3 or 4 a night, And meanwhile, I was having at least 12-pack a night, probably, or something like that. Vodka or heavy whiskey pours. Forget you're pouring sometimes. Oh, I guess I'll just finish out with all.
Yeah, half and half. Half
I got
something else.
sidetracked. It wasn't my fault.
You were talking to me, So all that stuff. And she goes, yeah, you definitely have PTSD and you need to talk to somebody. You definitely need to file your workers' comp claim. So because of my foot, and I had a second surgery about 2 years later on my foot to remove some stuff that was in there, some tumor or something. And so I had an open IA. I'm sorry, listen to me, open IA. I never had an IA. By the way, never had. I had to open workers' comp claim. And they finally said, all right, well, you got a meeting with these lawyers. And they sent me in front of a room of like 4 different lawyers. And you got the people typing, and I got my workers' comp guy. And they pretty much made me break down in this room, going over why am I feeling this way? What are the other symptoms? And I'm not making. I got the evidence I was shot. I mean, you saw the photo. I mean, you got the case file. It's not like I'm just like. So I was like, I remember just like, geez. So they finally say, all right, send him an independent guy. I finally go to their independent guy. It's always funny when you hear it like that. And he wrote this big thing and said, yeah, I need it. I need the certain therapy, and I didn't need prescription pills. I needed to go talk. So got me in touch with Dr. Mark Barnett in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. He treats a lot of first responders, and he's dealt with some serious stuff like 9/11 people that have been victims of that and some of the stuff they saw. So he knows exactly what we're going through. And, the first thing he ever told me I walked in, he's like, Eric, you're going to have to learn how to dance with this. Just going to have to learn how to dance with it, with the PTSD, because it's not going anywhere. It's going to be there. It affected your central nervous system, and your body is doing what it's supposed to do. It's protecting you, so you're supposed to be hyper vigilant. You're supposed to be not sleeping as well. You're supposed to be a little more on edge because your body's kind of going back to that basic state, and it's protect. So, he helped me learn all that. And I saw that cat, dude, for every 2 weeks for 5 years until I got out of there. Nice. And it was I'm telling you, I get emotional about this guy because woo, that's what we need. Those guys need those options, So that's why we get so passionate about it, because I've never cried about this part of it. It's funny. I was telling you earlier, I never know what hits it, but he saved my life. I was able to get other guys to go to him, and I retired. I had to stop seeing him. It was his birthday today, and I was like, I called and left the voice recording at his office because I guess he's not supposed to have your therapist's phone number, so I don't have it, right? So I was like, hey, happy birthday, it's KetoFive0, you know, and he follows me a little bit. I see his like little messages now and then. So, but that dude,
Yep.
man, don't be scared to fight for it because you deserve
Yeah.
it, you know, and hopefully 2014, 15, when I was going through, it's a lot easier now. It's a little more accepted. The stigma's not as bad. I really thought I was going to lose my job within a year, that they were going to put me in some kind of probation status and said, if you can't do this certain thing or you can't get approved, you're going to be out of a job or out on disability. You know,
I'm
Yeah.
actually kind of surprised. Like, I wasn't, because I don't know your full story. And I'll be
Yeah.
honest, there was a piece of me that expected that that's where it was going, that they forced you to resign over
they
it.
didn't. Dude, I was on a call before I went to evidence, and there was some guy, you know, a New York cop down here opened up another business, you know, like a fireman. He's got a big truck, land business or landscaping, pool
Yeah,
business,
other business.
electrician. Yeah. So this cat had his retirement money. He bought like a mechanic shop or something. And he's like, I was on the job. How long you been? How much longer you got, sucker? You know, and I was like, you know, I still got 10 more years. He's like, I'm like, yeah. I go, I'm just getting back. You know, I got shot, you know, like 3 months ago. And he's like, you're still on the job? It's like, man, up in New York or Boston, you get retired out. They're done with you. They're not going to deal with it. You just get that's it. You don't even have a choice.
Yeah.
I was like raising my hand. I'm like, well, you know, if you want to
Go ahead, do that.
right out. If I knew now about the whole health journey, I would have obviously probably taken that disability and just left way back then and saved myself, you know, 5-6 years of heart disease and other trauma that was going on from my bad diet and bad decisions, you know. So
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
hey, it is what it is. You know, it got me to a point where I found this guy, and you know, one of the biggest things that happened was Joe Crowder, 792. I was 793. He was the guy that I caught shoplifters with, and we went to the academy together. He dies of a heart attack in 2016 as our canine guy. He's like tip-top shape, squared away, you know, and supposedly he had stents put in a few years before because he had some, you know, he had some chest pain. So the first thing they do is let's just go in there and make sure that, you know, and technology was different, you know, so I can't totally blame them. They're just trying to help the guy, but he died jogging, you know, and it was just off duty,
Yeah.
not an in line of duty death, none of the other benefits that probably he should have gotten, you know, and you're like, wow, that guy died of a heart attack and he looked like that. And I looked, my belly was hanging over my gun belt going to his funeral. I remember my wife tapping it. She's like, oh, daddy's got a belly. And I was like, oh, no.
Oh, we're not going there.
Like I was walking around ignoring it, but she just hit it. And, you know, seeing him land there in the casket, it's like, holy cow, you know, and started, you know, about 2017, I was part of this little group of 8 of us going to a cabin, these 8 cops. We never knew each other. And we just spent a weekend. And one guy was a film guy, and he made a film out of it called Cops in Cabins. And it's 2017, and he interviews all of us. And it was cool. We'd go down to breakfast every day, and we'd have story of the day. Like one guy would be like, hey, what was your most embarrassing moment as a cop? So 8 stories on the way to get breakfast, the most hilarious shit you ever heard, right? And we were bonding. It was the most comforting thing, right? And these guys don't know the people I work with, and I don't know who they work with. And it was the most support. And that's how the Cops in Cabins or campers thing eventually starts getting going, because this is the seed that was planted. And in that documentary, I saw myself at 245 pounds suffering from heavy PTSD. I was drinking a lot, always depressed. You know, it was the go, 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 and then screw my body up to relax. And meanwhile, I'm getting sicker and sicker. And that shocked me. And about 6 months later, I played basketball with a guy he goes, hey, you should try keto. I'm like, what the hell is that? Keto what? That sounds like UFC fighting or something. Like I gotta roll a tire down a hill.
It really does. You're right about that. It sounds like it's some kind of martial arts. 100%.
I'm like, oh man. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you were a DI instructor and you walked up, I'm going to show you the keto technique. I'm going to be, oh, this is going to be painful.
Yeah.
So I looked it up about burning fat instead of carbohydrates, and I just kind of looked into it, started doing it, meal plan, and 6 months later, I was down 50 pounds, dude.
Nice.
You know, started helping cops. They're like, what are you doing? I go, you got to get rid of Dr. Pepper. You got to get off this. And, you know, I was absorbing, like reading all these different doctors and books and standing on my feet. Like right now I'm doing the podcast on my feet. I don't like to sit because it just tires me down. And, you know, so it just became like a lightning rod. And then 2019, they're like, you got heart disease. I go, I'm down 50 pounds, bro. What are you going to do? You want to start cutting me open now?
Yeah.
And what are you going to do? I'm already, you know, so I really walked away from my cardiologist and started looking at different ways of reducing more of my, you know, inflammation, my weight. And I did carnivore. and I
Mhm.
lost another 25 pounds. I mean, I'm rocking 175 right now, which I hadn't seen since 8th grade. I couldn't make my
Nice.
ninth grade Optimist football team because it was too heavy. So this is crazy, dude. I have not seen
Mhm.
this body, and I've been this body for 5 years. I've maintained it with the carnivore diet, a little bit of sourdough, avocados, almond butter now and then. I'll go have a slice of
Mhm.
pizza and stuff. I quit drinking about 2 years ago, so that's kind of not court. It wasn't court ordered. No,
Damn.
there was
Yeah.
no like
I owe you $50, Willie. I'll pay you later.
no
Yeah.
no RV crashes or anything. It's just kind of like I
Mhm.
found myself, we I don't know if you guys know, but we sold the house and we got an RV 2019. We just decided to travel the country. COVID hit. Then it was like, where are we running to? Where are we going to hide? And everything got nuts. And, it just was like, the best decision was ever made for me personally to do the RV life. And I
That's
found
cool.
out when you're camping every weekend and every day, it doesn't mean you got to drink every day. Because I
Yeah.
felt like I was camping. Hey, I'm camping. Come on. Cheers, baby.
Yeah,
Cheers.
exactly. Mhm. Yep.
So, yeah, and that's how the whole flag thing happened in New York, with the flag and trying to kick me out of a campground for it and started cops and campers out of it. It was it's pretty wild. I know we only got like 15 minutes left, right?
Hold on. If I can get my watch.
Yeah. But
Yeah, I
tell
don't
us
Not even.
about cops. Yeah, tell us
Okay.
you want
about
to get,
cops
all
and
right.
campers, man.
So,
Yeah.
real quick, 2019, my wife's like, let's sell the house. I'm like, you're crazy. She's like, let's get a camper. I'm like, you're even crazier. Or we can get a tree house. We can look at tiny homes. And I'm like, what is going on with this lady? And then I get an email from some cat, 23andMe, says, hey, my name's Dave Stoll. And according to 23andMe, it says we're both brothers. Not only that, we're both cops and we both live in Florida. I'm like, what? Definitely being spammed. All right, give me your department number, right?
Mhm.
Just Dave Stoll. Holy shit. And then it's like FaceTime. Oh my God, he looks like my dad. He's like 50-year-old version. My dad's
Mhm.
75. So it was kind of just weird. Turns out my dad knocked his mom up in 1967, 68, before he met my mom. Who knew? And I told you my mom left his ass. You can see the history.
Oh, yeah.
So, and Dave never knew his birth parents. So he was adopted by a Navy pilot, went off to San Diego, grew up in San Diego. His dad was officer in charge on the base out there where Top Gun was filmed, the original. So
Nice.
when
Cool.
he's 15, he got a picture with Goose's bomber jacket because his dad got him special perks to go like meet Tom Cruise and stuff. I'm
Are
like,
you serious?
Whoa.
my mom's solving freaking homicides, right? I'm
Yeah.
dodging pedophile priests at the YMCA, okay, at all the private schools. I'm like, get away
Mhm.
from me, another one goes down. And he's like
Yeah.
getting the fairy dust from Tom Cruise. So, anyways, we hook up,
Mhm.
and it's like, dude, this is crazy. So I tell my public information officer, hey, I found a cop, brother. This is crazy. She's like, oh my God, I got goosebumps. Can we put it out on Twitter? I'm like, all right, you can do it. Shit blew up, man. 2019, they loved us. 2020, they're flipping cars, not so much, So 2019, they loved it. And all of a sudden, press conference, Dave comes down, microphones, and my brother Dave, first thing he says is like, usually when I see this many cameras, because he's a sergeant, he works at the courthouse in Orange County down there in Orlando. Yeah,
Mhm.
he's squared away. He's been a cop 10 years longer than I was. He got it at 21 and just been riding it, doing all the good things and a lot more trained than I was, everything, and he was usually it's a more somber event when you see something like
Mhm.
this. But for once, it's actually a really good event. And I was like, yeah. And then, you got me up there going, it was like Santa Claus coming to town when he came over. And so this poor guy he ends up finding my dad and me, and we got four other siblings. He finds his birth mom, finds her two daughters. She ends up passing away after finally meeting Dave because he finally found his birth mom. It's like a
Mhm.
lifetime story, dude. If I ever told a story, I'll start crying because he ended up finding out through a cousin that he found through the 23andMe that wasn't on my list because we started doing our detective work. I'm like, well, that one's not the same percentage. I don't even have that on my list. You know,
Yeah.
so then that happens. We're all over, all the way to New Zealand, and we're all in Sweden newspapers. We see both of us looking at each other, and it's all in different writing. It's weird. And Amazing Race reaches out. Hey, you guys want to audition for Amazing Race? I'm like, Dave, we're going to Hollywood. I only knew this guy for like a month. And he's like, Hollywood, what are you talking? I go, Amazing Race just reached out through my department. They want to talk to us. So we filled out the application. We sent in our audition tape. I retire. Dave's got a year to go. So now it's October of 2019. My wife's still talking this nonsense about getting an RV. You know, I'm like, whatever,
Mhm.
lady. And Dave's been an RVer for 10 years. So I'm like, oh, this is not a good sign when the brother I just found's been already RVing for 10 years.
Yeah,
So,
you're done.
You're
but
definitely RVing.
I got Amazing Race on the mind, right? And I'm like, oh, Amazing. I hate running. Like I'll play basketball and football, but I just don't like running for shit. The Amazing Race sounds like the most like keto. It sounds awful. So I didn't know it was a scavenger hunt thing and you got to problem solve and do a lot of other things. I'm like, go with a guy I don't know. That's my older brother and my sergeant. He outranks me too. I'm
Yeah,
like,
exactly. That whole outranking thing's a problem.
So we end up sending everything in, and they go, hey, we're going to fly you guys out December 12th. I'm like, dude, we're going out to LA. Woo! So I reached out to Doug Myro of the Narcos group because he had called also in Argus at the same time I found Dave is when they reached out about my mom, and they go, we want to talk to your mom about Griselda. So I'm like, hey, I think I'm Hollywood. Hey, Doug, I'm going out there, and he's like, oh, you want to go to this Chargers game? I got club level. I'm like, dude, we're going to be with, dude, they pushed us back to February because they already had their 10. I guess we were part of the 12 lot they had or whatever.
Yeah.
COVID shows up. Never got a call again.
Oh,
The first police car I saw get flipped. I was like, Dave, we're done, dude. We need to find another idea. But so all that stuff happened. Finally get the RV, camp with my older brother, Dave. 2020, we hit the road. And, we don't know where to go. We're just trying to keep our kids away from all the nonsense. And, I'm just trying to retire. And I'm running for my life. Chinese taking over, run away from the jab or whatever is happening. And I was already in my world in metabolic health. So I knew what was good for the immune system. And everything I was hearing was nonsense. And then I started getting blocked on all the social media channels. I wasn't doing anything socially then. Little Facebook KetoFive0 group for my cop buddies I was helping. They nicknamed me KetoFive0, so it was kind of a fun thing, And man, that year got crazy. And in New York, drove Niagara Falls. I put my police flag up, and I always met cops and firemen and nurses. And you're too young to be retired, all this stuff and metabolic health. And I started talking to them. Hey, I can help you. I can coach you. I became personal trainer. I went to sports nutrition school. I didn't go get a master's in it, but I went through, a whole over COVID. I went to school for it and got my license and all that. And I'm pretty well, a lot better than I used to be. So I'm like, I got some, and this campground's like, nah, you got to take your flag down. The guy rolled up in a golf cart. And he's like, hey, you got to take your flag down. I'm like, hey, nice one, buddy. And were you an army guy? Were you a fireman? And, I know firemen, that's why they made cops because they needed heroes, right? So he doesn't shake my hand. He doesn't do anything that I would have probably done with a little bit of,
Yeah.
Goes, take your flag down. I'm like, what flag? And he's like, you're a thin blue line flag. And I'm like, oh. So I turn on my phone. And now I'm like, nah, I'm that bitch that's recording, but I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. So I'm going to record this. And he goes, yeah, you need to take down your thin blue line flag. And I lost it. I was like, you motherfucker, I got dead cops in my arm. And send some piece of shit over here. And then it cuts off. And everyone's like, oh, what the hell happened? And I ended up walking away. And then the manager came over to try to kick me out. She's calling the police because now I'm refusing to leave the campground because I'm refusing to take a flag down that has the thin blue line in it. And I'm seeing Canadian flags right across from me. It's just, I lost it, dude. I wasn't even drinking then. I just got there. So PTSD off the rails. And, if you see the video, it's out there. Not proud of the way I acted on there. It was definitely a sign to me like, man, you still got it. You can get into that red primal spot super fast. And I don't like that guy because I can get very scary. And going through that whole shooting thing, it could be really violent. But so if you want to stop there, we can leave people in the loop for the cops and campers discussion another day.
That'll be perfect, yeah, because I don't want to lose people. So
okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But awesome. Man, I appreciate it so much. Normally we end with, we joke pretty good through this one, though, so I'm not going to make us tell funny stories at the end of this one, but normally we'll do a funny story. We'll do it next time.
I felt like I talked the whole time.
That's perfect.
That's good. That's what we wanted, man.
Yeah,
that was
that's
perfect.
good. Yeah.
A lot to say. So don't worry. When we get part 2, and we'll also have some questions at that point. But man,
I was trying to do a couple other things. You might have some directors on here. I wanted to show that I can play multiple characters.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah, very good.
The professor, liberal professor,
Driving Subaru. Yeah.
Hey man, I'd like to talk to you guys again, man. This is fun. I want to hear some of you guys' stories too, since I was talking.
Yeah.
No, we will definitely be having you back on, brother.
So, yeah.
Appreciate it so much.
Thank you for sharing. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Incredible story, incredible journey, man. Just really freaking unbelievable. And what you're doing now to reach back out, like that's what I love, you know. And that's part of it. It's been my thing. You know, you make a mistake. I made a mistake 10 years not dealing with my mental health, right? It cost me everything. And then the fact of not wanting other officers, other first responders to make these same mistakes and to try to fix things. That's what it's all about, and that's what that's what Willy and I are trying to do. And so when we meet other people like yourself that are doing the same thing, like Aaron, who we had on, like Abby, who's on here right now, just that means so much. So awesome, man. Appreciate it so much, brother.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, glad you guys got it. I'm glad you guys got a chance.
Right now.
Hey, I'm glad you guys got a chance to see me. You know, I feel like Ric Flair. Woo!
You are, yeah.
Hey, seriously. Hey, this is seriously, guys out there that need to talk. This is a great way to do it. If you got a certain story to tell the people, like, you know, even if it's one experience, man, you're going to hit with somebody else that went through it. And we all got a bunch of them, you know, so don't be scared to talk. It took me a long time to just start letting it out, and it's actually saved my life, man. And, you know, with the heart thing going on, and that's another story we can talk about, how serious my heart is and the stuff I've had to do to save myself so I can enjoy retirement. I mean, I worked hard for that. You know, I suffered a lot. I sold a piece of my soul for that pension. So like we all did, right? So.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, thank you. We're going to have you back next week if you're available. Otherwise, as soon as possible. And
absolutely, brother.
We'll plug Cops and Campers, and we'll put your information down in when we post this. So anybody that wants to check it out.
And if they want to see right away Cops and Campers, we do have a little 30-minute documentary, and it goes into the flag stuff and what the benefits of coming are. So you can get a little sample of that.
Perfect.
Check it out. You know, nothing fancy. It's all out of pocket, our stuff, but it's pretty good. So
that's good.
That's the way to do it.
All right.
That's how we do it.
All right, brother. We'll talk to you soon. All right, later.
All right.
Yep.
All right, now we got to figure out cutout time.
Just do a little dance until it's done.
Yeah, I told my kids I was gonna be changing and doing different characters.
I would